And we're live, so I'm just waiting for Greg to roll in. Are you in the what is that picture behind you over your right shoulder? Is that your dad?
You talking about right here, the upper corner?
Yeah,
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 that's my dad, and then I'm the tall kid, and then my little brother's the little blonde kid.
right on.
I think I was like 5, so that would have been 1972.
Yeah, that was when everybody had the wide collars on their shirts. Those are those are back in style now. All you need is a paint can and a an album from Saturday Night Fever, and walk down the street with that get up.
When my dad passed away, and I had to go through his clothes, he was like a clothes hound, I don't know, it was weird. He had a closet full of clothes, and he still had like those old butterfly collared like suits from the 70s. He never got rid of them, and I should have kept them, but I donated them to Goodwill. But I regret that now. I was like, God, I wish I'd have kept one of his old like polyester suit coats.
What's up, Greg? You on?
It says I'm backstage.
There you are, man. Sorry, I saw you calling. So
Yeah, well, because you're talking. I'm like I was saying that. Well, it says only the host can see you, and
we were talking. Matt and I were talking about the picture over his right shoulder of his dad back in 1972 with those great big old Saturday Night Fever collars on the
Jimi
shirt.
Hendrix. Is your dad
the top one?
Same era, right? So welcome everybody. Hey, Judy from British Columbia. Bob Schneider's in from Colorado. Bob, what's going on? Joe Risch from beautiful northwestern Florida, and I think we got Jory from Chicago. I think we got Nick from Chicago also in the house here. So hey, welcome to MX Broadcasting. We did a little countdown a little bit early to test it out to see how many people stream in. We got a great guest showing up today that we'll talk about in a bit. But God, man, this is getting to be like our 30th show, and you guys, man, are becoming pretty famous. People are asking about us all the time. The cool thing is, the one we did with Brian last week, I've gotten so much freaking feedback on that. Like all kinds of people were calling, asking questions. Greg, great job getting him on. I mean,
he had a great time too. We talked later, and he said it was really fun. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it was freaking solid because listen, man, I've been telling everybody about M2 money like it was my idea now. Like,
well, it's funny. I used to, we used to have like a chat or something. We'd be talking about something, and the next thing I know, there'd be like an editorial in the Wall Street Journal that would be like what we talked about. I'm going, yeah, he gets all his really good ideas from me.
So, Greg, is this M2? Is this M2 money or is this M1?
No, that is M1 and M2.
So we're going to be throwing out M2 for everybody today.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
All right. Well, look, I thought it was cool. I wanted to recap a little bit about what we talked about last week with him because he really put into perspective the logistical, from his point, the logistical issue. Extra money sloshing around the system. I know a few things I saw him say is we may not see the same 30 or 40% year over year escalation on housing prices, although it'll stay good. But once this works through the system, things will stay good. But that will take out a lot of the fat. And if I summed up what he said, I hope they don't try to build more ports, or put more vessels on, because when it backs off, there'll be too much.
Well, I mean,
one thing that he said that could counteract everything is if they run out the Fed chairman because he doesn't want to go along with the new regime's idea of printing money, right? And
right.
So if that happens, if we get a hyper aggressive new Fed chairman that wants to just lift all the restrictions that we were talking about, then all bets are off, right? That's a whole nother world that we haven't ever lived through.
For sure. Hey, Steve Loebner, how are you? Bill, see the guys from Sherwood are showing up. Good to see you all.
Representing their boy. Like it.
We didn't give away the guest yet, man. So anyway, I thought that was great. Let's go right into a little bit about a market recap. And Greg, you and I talked on the way in. I was going to say, look we all know the logistical situation going on. We all know how hard it is to build stuff and all that, and how we got volatility in the market. This week was no different than last week, except the basis did start to. You always preach basis works. Well, it seems to be working, right?
I mean, absolutely. I put a post out over the weekend showing like week over week last week, the basis went from $150 into $45, and today the basis has basically come all the way in. November futures at 628, midweek print at 622. My big question is, how much of a discount now is futures going to go to the cash market? So the old saying, Ash, you and I had the benefit of being under Ted Block's tutelage, an icon for the industry, a real leader, and he would always say the same thing: futures leads cash. Futures leads cash.
Yeah.
And clearly it was a positive and pulled the market higher over the last 5, 6, 7 weeks when it was a big premium. I guess we'll see what happens if it goes to a discount now.
He used to say a lot of other things, but we'll keep those between ourselves.
Well, we could pepper them in here and there, just when we find one that's appropriate.
Yeah.
We've had 140, 150. What was the high of the November contract a couple weeks ago? Like $790 or something like that?
$789. I think it was standby caller.
We've had like $150 correction here in the November contract.
That's insane, Matt. Weeks. That's crazy that you just said that. Like, you think about that. Gregg always puts up the point. $135 a thousand used to be a big yearly move. We just moved $150 a thousand on the contract in a few weeks.
Right.
Basically. We were on the 18th, which is a week ago. Last Monday. The high was standby. What was that high? The high was 780. We were 780 a week ago.
Wow.
Yep.
That's interesting. So, all right, so a lot has changed in the last few weeks. How is Gregg Riley and Matt Beymer? What are you seeing? What are you doing differently? What are you looking at as opportunities in the next few weeks after the move we just went through?
Go ahead, Matt.
I am, as I reported last Wednesday, I was actually having a really busy week, and I did have a busy week all the way through Friday, and to the point where my inventory that I look at my report every morning was less than half of what I started the week with. So, I mean, it was a significant inventory available to sell dropped drastically for me, and so now I'm kind of in like the final 3 innings. If you look at the ball game, is first through third, we're setting up the game, and then middle innings, and now we're bringing in the relievers off the bench. Well, I'm in the bringing in the relievers off the bench stage of my inventory situation, to the point where, in the next couple of weeks, I could actually think about buying more wood if the deal kind of struck my fancy. And so I haven't made those decisions yet. Historically, going into November, December, things can be a little bit dicey, and due to reasons that have nothing to do with lumber. They could be weather related. They could be just time of year, holidays and hunting seasons and things like that. So as well as I do, Gregg knows all about fourth quarter weirdness, and so my plan is probably just going to be to just take it easy for a little bit and just see how things transpire. Having said that, I am still getting a fair bit of inquiry for trucks, and they want it right away. It's the dangest thing. It's like, you would have thought that all the lumber that got bought and sold in the last 60, 80 days, you would think people have plenty of it by now, but that doesn't seem to be the case. In a lot of cases, I've got several people have called me in the last week and bought stuff and said, "Can you get it here tomorrow?" after they bought it. And
no, I can't.
No. I mean, the answer is no. Of course it's no. I mean, logistics are a nightmare right now. But but they're couching their purchases without telling me that, right? Like they're not leading with, hey, I need it tomorrow. They're just, hey, do you have this? And then I say, yeah, I've got it, and I sell it to them, and they're like, hey, can I get here tomorrow? So they know that, they don't want to pay more for needing it, but they actually do need it. It's a really weird dynamic.
Yeah, it's interesting, Matt. Even on the platform, for instance, like we have some 2x4 16s Euro and some pine on there. Somebody was bidding 2x4 2 and better pine yesterday, prompt. I mean, what is really prompt nowadays? I said, hey, there's a guy listing it right now that can do those 10 trucks, but they're 3 weeks out. They said, okay, they changed it and hit it, right? Because they're like, but it's, again, it's one of those items where they're like, yeah, we can use that. We just listed prompt because if we can get a prompt, we'll take it, right? But we'll take it if it's cheap. So, Greg,
and to Matt's point, I mean, I have lumber on the ground, and for most destinations, I'm quoting 3 weeks shipment or sooner. Some of them I go, yeah, I probably going to get there in 2 weeks, but I'd rather write it up for 3 weeks, so I'm not, so I'm not late.
Yeah, right on.
Well, hey, I have a question for you, Greg. So you keep most of your wood on the Eastern Seaboard, correct?
Yes.
Right. And so is historically, like if you're going from Miami, let's say, to Orlando, which would be a pretty simple intrastate, haul for you. Maybe not. I mean, like a normal lane. Just pick a normal lane in your memory that you've done 100 times. Is that taking 3 weeks, or can you still move that normal stuff, that short haul stuff, local business? Can you move that within a week?
Like right now, I've got a lot of lanes that are backed up that I've got a lot of orders to, and I'm struggling to get trucks to. I've got there's other stuff where it's moving. It's still moving kind of quote unquote okay for a lot more money.
Right.
Okay. I will say, and we got a guest coming on that we maybe shed some light on this. I ship a lot of lumber out of Western Massachusetts, and it seems like the trucks up there, which historically are very plentiful, are not, and so that's a place where I'm really struggling right now. Midwest, out of Chicago and Detroit, those trucks seem to be going just fine. And out of Southeast ports, they're more expensive, but they're not as bad.
Well, so just to go off what Matt said, not only is Fourth Quarter Weirdness a great band I listened to in college, but what do you see going into the fourth quarter here, Greg?
I used to say I could count on one hand the number of like Decembers where we make money for a combination of reasons. I mean, listen, here's the reality, the backdrop of the market. We've just moved from the 6 seasonally weakest weeks of the year. Okay. From mid-September until the 1st of November are the 6 seasonally the weakest weeks of the year. From now until, our Thanksgiving is neutral. And then we move to positive seasonals, and the seasonals strengthen. December's always funky just because of the holidays and year-end stuff. But, once we get into the first quarter, by the second, third week in January, you're in real seasonal strength.
Yeah, remember you used to always say never be short January, or you've never made money being short January, right?
Why am I short January then? Shit.
Oh, man. Full disclosure.
Premium.
So what I wanted to do, hey, anybody, Jeff Dill, Cape Cod, how are you, Jeff? How's the fishing up there? Good to have you on. Jeff is listed on the platform all the time. Love having Jeff on. I wanted to introduce our first guest and our only guest today. So
I thought we were having Brady on today. We're not having Brady?
I don't know if he got him or not. So I was going to bring in Kyle Little, COO of Sherwood Lumber. I've known Kyle for a long time. Great guy, does a lot at Sherwood Lumber. Not only do they do forward pricing, they have distribution all over. And my gosh, the cool thing I've seen on LinkedIn with them is all the specialty stuff they're doing now in decking and siding. So great group of fellows over there. I know Bill's on, Steve's on. Let's bring in Kyle and we'll start our banter back and forth. Hey, Kyle, how are you, man?
Hey, Ashley. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I didn't tell
I
him
know
all.
Kyle. He owes me money.
You too? You too?
Well, tell us a little bit about Sherwood, then we'll bring you in, Kyle, into the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Ash. Sherwood's a family-owned and operated distribution or wholesale distribution company. We're based out of Long Island, New York. We have distribution all across the United States, but regionally focused here in the Southeast and Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. You mentioned our exterior building products and a lot of our specialty components. It's a big push of ours. We're investing a lot of that in our future growth of our organization. Guaranteed forward pricing, which all of you guys know, and I've learned a lot from you over the years and what have you, is a big part of our business as well in the commodity world. That being said, our business continues to be very, very strong across all sectors. We have really had a real tremendous focus in really being customer, vendor, and associate centric. We very much try to go out there and talk about the same story about, you see our tagline, we'll be there with impeccable customer, vendor, and associate experience. That's what we really live and breathe every single day here at Sherwood Lumber.
Well, cool. As I mentioned to everybody before you came in, we kind of all know each other. And the cool thing about the little ecosystem in this industry is we all talk, chat, market, and all that back and forth. So let's do that. Well, Gregg, when I was walking in this morning, trying to get him to come down on some listing prices, we had a conversation about what to talk about. And it was really cool. Gregg's like, hey, we all know logistics and what the problems are there and all that, but let's talk about some things that maybe we don't see coming or that we hear about. Gregg, is that maybe you could? I'll let you take that over.
Yeah,
and see what
I thought it'd be a great opportunity. I mean, I know you're in a strategic role there at Sherwood, Kyle, and maybe give us a little flavor as you're looking at the future. What are some of the things, the big changes that you think could happen to our industry that would affect distribution or the industry in general?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, thanks again for having me. I think I'm kind of the redheaded stepchild in regard to your guest last week. He was amazing. I really enjoyed your guys' talk with him, and specifically talking about spending and what's happening in the economy and what have you, and thinking of that from a strategic point of view. I think overall, let's just talk the next 18 months in our business. There's really no better time to be in the lumber business than what we've already experienced the previous 18 and what we're likely to experience for the next 18. Beyond that, not so sure, and it gets a little fuzzy with all of the things that we're borrowing today that we're going to have to pay back at some point in the future. The things that would concern me, obviously, would be some of those things when we have to quote unquote pay the piper down the road. When do interest rates really have to go up? When does this quantitative easing really take effect and start to hinder specifically our business? And lumber, as you guys have noted many times before, it's a leading indicator of what happens in all parts of the United States economy. It happened in 2008, 2009. It happened in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and it's happening today in the 2000s. So we're going to be one of the first markets to go down. We were the first market that, we had this quote unquote transitory inflation. We're the first to go up, first to go down. I've always been saying on many national media outlets that it's not transitory in regard to commodity prices in general. We are going to trade at a higher than normal range, and we are roughly 1.5 to 2.5 times the 20 and 30-year averages, which I believe will continue until this cycle ends, which all of us don't know when that's going to be, but it's likely going to happen in concert with interest rates rising, unemployment, because it's not like the wages that you and I have to go out there and increase for our truckers that we're having to pay right now, our laborers that we're having to pay right now, what have you. It's not like we're going to be taking that back anytime soon. What's going to ultimately happen is those jobs will be lost at some point in the future. That's how the market will get back to equilibrium whenever that time comes in the next adjustment. But what are we not seeing? To get back to your original question, I think there's just this undershot right now of how good the economy really is and how elastic and how much extra money is really sitting out there that can withstand inflation for a longer than normal period of time. Because we haven't had any for the last 10 to 15 years, really. I mean, we haven't had anything. So how long can we stay in this inflationary environment? A lot of people are saying we can't, but in all likelihood, as you've talked to me many, many times before, things stay overvalued and undervalued for longer periods of time than anybody really thinks. Why wouldn't we stay in an inflationary environment for a longer period of time than what we really think?
No, that's so true. And like Greg used to always tell me ever since I've been in the 20s, like, you'll know it's inflation when your barber starts charging you more. Greg, my barber started charging me more a couple weeks ago.
Really? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's big.
But let's talk about interest rates a little bit. So I was on the phone with a guy today, said, this is insane. It's great. He was at a conference in Dallas, and everybody said plus and minus to interest rates, right? Interest rates are probably going to tick up in the short term, which is bullish, right? Because everybody's going to want to pile in more. So I guess the real point is, are they going to, I mean, Greg, what do you think? Are these going to continue? Are they going to, they haven't really moved at all, so to speak, right?
Well, I mean, mortgage rates are up maybe 0.5 point from the low. I mean, but these historically are, ridiculously low numbers. I mean, I think it's when you talk about housing, the year over year, we got the number yesterday on new home sales being up, and that housing prices are up 20%. It's really, when we look at housing, affordability is the issue, and the price increases are probably more significant than interest rates. Ash, I sent you an article this morning, which I thought was really interesting about innovation in our industry, and that's what kind of prompted me to, ask this question. Is they're 3D printing houses outside of Austin with Lennar, and I'd said, okay, like, what else could we do to really transform how we build houses? One of the things that they're doing on low cost entry houses, which is, obviously the hardest part of the market to hit right now.
Right.
The interesting thing is we talk about lumber and what it's saying, but lumber was, again, the first to move, the first now to get back to equilibrium at this higher than normal price range. But all the other input items have gone up substantially. Windows, doors, all the millwork items, roofing, gypsum. These things have gone up big multiples. And you talk about the cost. Lumber is now down it's trading in its new range. We haven't seen price adjustments come down. They've actually only continued to go up in these other building material items. So it's going to take some time and a major change in demand before you start to see a substantial change in these inflationary, pressure.
The other thing, Kyle, is, this whole idea of transitory inflation is a ridiculous statement. It's kind of like when a guy stands up there and says, 2 trillion, 3.5 trillion. It's going to cost zero, nothing. Right. It's just silly, and we all know that it's the most ridiculous thing that could be said. Another interesting thing that I saw an article about, this crazy talk of we're going to tax unrealized gains, right? Which is absolutely, completely unworkable, hasn't been vetted, hasn't been thought through on any level. But the article was how that always with tax changes is it's the unintended consequences that are significant. And he made the corollary to the 1980s when they changed the rules on passive losses of real estate, how that basically triggered the savings and loan crisis in the 80s. And his point was, if you did this, that you would crash real estate prices, is if they enacted it.
You'd also see an exodus of wealth. People would just leave. They'd move to a different country and start sheltering their investments in other ways by, people that have that much money, they can afford to make these types of decisions where they don't have to live in Kansas anymore, right? So, Hey, there's a little thing here Tim Hansen put up about the Canadian duties. I think we should talk about that.
Yeah, I saw that too, Matt. That's a great point because Greg and you guys, we were talking about this. So we've got some new duties potentially being announced for next year. Is this right? And they were supposed to be announced. I thought this month, or is it mid-November?
They're talking about doubling the duty like in the imminent future here, like
the preliminary determination was to double the duties. The date is sometime in late November, and then if it's final determination, then it would be effective sometime in early December.
Well, let's make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. When this first came out 3 years ago, this new one, this has been going on for 100 years, right? Some of the mills in Canada got very little duty. Some of them got a higher duty based on their history, et cetera, right? So this coming out, when you're saying double, some people that had very little, like 2 or 3%, will get more, right? Some people that already had 15%, maybe a little bit. Kyle, did you have any? You usually
it's not double across the board, but there are some duty. The baseline duty will double, but it's the institutions that were getting directly audited will have different rates. Different rates.
Yeah. So the next question is, why would America as a country adopt this policy in the middle of transitory inflation and lumber prices being basically double what their historical price range is? And we just quadrupled the price of lumber here in 2021, already. So.
Well, one, it was done well before we were in this current supply chain issue pre-pandemic, and two, I just want to note, and I think you guys have talked about this before, duties do nothing in regard to the overall price of lumber unless lumber is trading at or below a break even. So the sawmills are not limiting production because of a duty situation at the current price structure. However, if we go below what it is the cost of production, then that will change the situation. Yeah, the price is dictated based off of supply and demand, period, not about the cost to get it to the marketplace.
Now, there may be some short-term people wanting to buy stuff and anticipating the price going up, but like I said, the market's the market, right? Greg, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle's 100% correct. It's a cost and it only affects break even. I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is in the history of all of the taxes and duty schemes that we've had in the last 30 to 40 years, the only time that there's been any like money taken from the Canadian industry was one time where they gave up $1 billion to get $5 billion and buy up all the southern sawmills. And, they made a strategic decision that we're going to give you $1 billion, you give us $5 billion, right? I mean, so, this one seems to be a little stickier, but, to Matt, to your point, is why would the administration do something? I mean, come on, man. You're actually asking that question. I mean,
I know when they talk about
have you seen who's running things? I mean, come on, man.
We talked about this back in May or June on this show when it was first announced, and I predicted, and I look like an idiot now, but I predicted that this would just fall away and that they wouldn't enforce it, and it was a harebrained idea. Well, look how wrong I am.
The last thing, you're right.
Apparently, we're just going to keep coming up with new harebrained ideas on how to administer trade in this country, no matter what you see at the store. I went to the store and bought 3 bags of groceries the other day. I didn't buy any meat or alcohol. $99 for 3 bags of groceries.
I would have to think that
inflation.
The Association of Home Builders, all of the lobbying groups are probably working pretty aggressively to, at a minimum, stay this for a period of time, because it doesn't make any economic sense. It's not in the best interest of our country as a whole and our industry specifically.
Right. If you'd have told the owners of West Fraser, Canfor, Toco, even Babine, our mill, that in 2009, 2010, when you could get all the beetle kill logs that you could ever want, and the price of timber was pennies on the dollar, and you could sell lumber for $200 1,000 and still be profitable. If you'd have told all the owners of those sawmills, 10, 12 years ago, that they would be the highest cost production zone and the least profitable going into the year 2021, 2022, and that they'd make far more money on their yellow pine, holdings. They would all like, what?
Well, here's the interesting thing there, Matt. I saw the new stat. We were talking for a year about how Southern Yellow Pine timber held the Wall Street Journal, even though it was a very regional article. The price of timber hasn't moved. Guess what? From what I'm hearing, the price of Southern Yellow Pine timber is up now.
Yeah.
I mean,
the price of everything's up, Ashley.
Yeah, the price of everything. So Judy was saying the mills may sell to others than the U.S., and Bill came back. Impact will be reducing Canadian mill return for the mills, bringing wood to the U.S. There will be some of the smaller mills that will avoid sending material here, but the most part, they need our market to sell into. Bottom line, impact on prices will be felt long-term versus short-term. And Tim Hansen said, Bill, I was guessing that impacts will be short-term, then the market will take over. But right now, I'm not betting large either way. Confusing, right? I mean, volatility.
Maybe all this extra basis wood will bridge the gap.
Yeah, that's it.
Kyle, I say that tongue in cheek because you know how much basis wood I think's really out there.
It's like next to nothing. It's like a couple hundred cars. We watched the open interest on it. It's like a couple hundred cars, and it's like amazing because it was the opportunity of a lifetime.
Oh my gosh! I mean, you know us. We're very heavy in trading the board and what have you, and we look at we're a long company by nature because of our distribution footprint. And the amount of wood that we basis traded, it's part of, we always look at it as a percentage of our overall. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like a week's worth of sales. Like it's not like a lot of lumber. Really.
Isn't it amazing though? We get calls from people outside of the industry just talking about how there must be tons of basis wood out there. I'm like, have you looked at the open interest? Like the perception of it. Casey O'Neill was asking a question: will labor pay in the lumber industry keep up with the rest of the economy? Fast food starting at $20+ an hour.
I mean, I can comment on that in regard to like what we have to deal with at our operation sites. I mean, we're dealing with that pressure today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's really hard to hire forklift drivers if you own a reload.
Yep. Truck drivers.
And especially one that'll pass a drug test in Oregon. I don't know about Massachusetts, but in Oregon, where most drugs are legal now, if you're going to try to hire somebody with a, that for kind of a working man's job, I guess is how I would describe it, you're going to have to pay at least $20 an hour, and you're just going to cross your fingers that the guy can pass a drug test. It's really frustrating. Hey, going back to one other thing, I will leave you guys with. You wanted to know some information that might be relevant to the upcoming market, and I'll leave you with this. Because the mills in Canada and the West Coast started out selling a whole bunch of lumber to China and Asia back in August and September, and that really helped them firm up the bottom, back when we needed help. In early August, we were all flailing around going, hey, what are we going to do here? Mills were taking $350 on 2x4 and just looking for offers. Well, at that time, the Asian countries came in and started gobbling up a whole bunch of low grade. That really helped firm up the price of 2 and better and higher grades. Well, here we are 2.5 months later, and a lot of that wood still hasn't shipped due to the port problems, due to logistics with trucking. So what that means is you're going to see any of that lumber that could have gone to overseas in the fourth quarter is now going to be redirected towards North America instead.
Wait, so but was it sold already, Matt, or not?
It's already sold, but why would you take more orders of something you can't ship, right? So there's a whole bunch of mill wood that's sold right now that isn't invoiced, right? And so rather than selling more of that, they're going to come to us and say, can you use this in Nebraska? Can you use this in Texas? Can you use this in Massachusetts? Because they're not going to ship it to Shanghai. They're not going to ship it to Malaysia. They're not going to ship it to New Zealand. They're going to ship it to Kansas. Okay. So there's a piece of information that you guys might want to know about.
That's perfect. Can you comment on Hong Kong?
So Matt,
they're not taking Hong Kong either.
So what is that? So they're just moving the orders around. We got really cheap orders that we're not going to ship. We're going to ship the higher priced orders first. Do mills do that?
No, they've shipped a lot of that wood already. It's just not getting on a vessel, right? It's not invoiced. It hasn't been paid for. It's just sitting there, doing nothing.
So is that wood is still committed to and going to ship at some point in the future? It's just logistically it can't get to it.
It can't get loaded on a vessel and,
it can't get to its
get
market.
a letter of credit established and then get paid for until it
they're-
actually gets loaded on a vessel and moved, across international waters.
They're gonna turn the inventory at the port. Basically,
The inventory at the port needs to turn, right?
Yeah.
But rather than sending more inventory to the port, that next batch inventory, stuff that's being produced right now, is not going to go to the port. It's going to go back here.
Okay, I got you,
North
Matt.
America.
They sold a lot of wood. It hasn't shipped. They're not going to take more orders because they can't ship them. That's the way I feel. That's the way I feel every day now. Is like I don't need more orders that I can't ship.
Well, look at I want to take. We're kind of getting up against 40 minutes here, but there's so much to talk about. We'll leave this open. Kyle, let you. I'll let you have your final thought, then I'll roll over to Gregg, and then we'll close it out.
Look, I think you guys, thank you for again for having me on. But just as far as the market goes, I think we're at this. Matt said it really well. We're at kind of a challenging time in regard to getting wood to the market that's already been sold. I think it's going to continue as we move forward. That also is going to create a lot of uncertainty into 2022. I believe that volatility is here to stay, so to speak, because we're in a stop and start economy right now. And that's only going to put added pressure on having material at the right time. And that in itself, in many cases, you can't plan for what's happening. So that will in itself create a tremendous amount of gaps, which ultimately means that we have to pay a higher price when we need it. And when we have too much, we probably have to take a lower price than we want to and do that. So we're going to be dealing with this uncertainty for the foreseeable future. So I think the key is to make sure that when things like we just experienced, this basis that was showing us 6 and 8 weeks ago, there was never a better time in the industry to go and build a long inventory position and offset your risk at some point in the future. And you can still do that really if you look at the July or the January and the March contracts as well, because it's still giving you similar type spreads. It might not be as wide as it once was, but it's not so far off. So planning ahead and making sure that you offset that risk somewhere else in a future sale, I think is a prudent thing to do. And to think that you can go out there and be short in this marketplace and cover it somewhere with any certainty will ultimately just feed the fire. It's more fuel for more higher volatility. So if you want to go out there and create a more normal trading range, like you said, $135, then go out there and plan and manage your business appropriately and use the tools available to you to do it.
Great thoughts, Kyle. Matt, Gregg, any final thoughts? Or you guys?
I'm just happy that we got another guest that was willing to come on our show. That was cool. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, well, we didn't do what the Mannings did on the show. We didn't play true or false today. We'll do that next week.
Right. No, that's Ash. That's what we got to do. We'll have to add, put have the true or false questions. That'd be great. Kyle, good. Kyle, good to see you as always. Thanks for joining us. You had a tough act to follow, but I think you did a great job.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. I appreciate it. Look at all three of you guys are MX supporters, so I appreciate that. We want to keep putting out content to the industry that actually helps us all grow. Make sure you get a hold of Gregg, Matt, or Kyle if you want to do anything in the market. But come to mxlumber.com if you want to look at some transparent pricing and look at a real live digital market. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. You can join Matt Lehman and I tomorrow for lunch with Lumberman at 12 o'clock Central. We'll look forward to talking to you then.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Guys.
Cheers.